Hello, my name is JoLeanne Piper, and over the next few moments, I'm just going to give you some basic information about the New Testament, and then I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about some of the women that we read about in the New Testament. Now, the New Testament was written after 400 years of silence after Malachi. And it was during this time that there were no new prophets, and God just wasn't revealing anything new to the Jewish people. The word testament also means covenant. So in essence, the New Testament is a new covenant with God's people. The church, and that's the early church, played a very vital role in the development of the New Testament. And it took them centuries to decide which books would actually be included in the New Testament. The New Testament contains 27 books, and these books are not written in chronological order, but rather they're in topical and logical order. And the New Testament was written by either 15 or 16 different authors. We're not really sure exactly if it's 15 or 16 because it's unclear who wrote the book of Hebrews, although there's theories that suggest that Paul was the writer. Now, the book of Hebrews was accepted because the doctrine in the book matched that of Jesus and the prophets. Now, the New Testament is also divided into 5 different sections. First, we have the 4 Gospels. Second, we have Acts, which covers history. And just a side note about Acts. Acts is actually a sequel to Luke, and they were written at the same time, and they were meant to be written as one document. Third, we have letters. Fourth, we have the general epistles. And last, fifth, we have Revelation. That's my brief overview on the New Testament. And now I'm going to talk about some of the women of the New Testament. In the New Testament, we encounter powerful stories of women who played significant roles in the ministry of Jesus and in the early church. These women were not passive bystanders, but they were active participants. Jesus chose women from all walks of faith, all walks of life. Some had money, some were poor, some were young, some were old, some were marginalized, and some were outcasts. It didn't matter. Jesus showed compassion, kindness, and respect towards these women. We read of women in Luke, Acts, who were examples of they were strong in their faith, humble, and obedient women to God's law. Like I said before, the range of age was vast, young teenagers to very elderly. So let's talk about a few of them. We have Elizabeth. Elizabeth was childless for many years, but nonetheless, she didn't blame God. Instead, she remained faithful and she obeyed God's laws. Mary, the mother of Jesus, she was young. She was a teenager, but she was willing to serve and to be used by God because she trusted him. Anna was elderly, but she was a faithful prayer warrior. Joanna and Susanna, well, they used their own finances to help support the ministry of Jesus. The 3 women who found the empty tomb, they became key figures in spreading the good news of Jesus' victory over death. Now, it's important to mention the significance in the fact that it was women who found the empty tomb. This happened during a time when women weren't even allowed to be witnesses or testify in court. Yet, it's their testimony that was received as valid and as truth. And this is another reason that brings validity to God's word, the Bible. Other women we read about, such as Lydia and Priscilla, well, they were important in establishing and supporting early Christian communities. In Acts 2, we read that women received the gift of the Spirit. And Paul tells us that the Spirit will be poured out on all people. And then he tells us even more that sons and daughters will prophesy. Acts 21 confirms this. We read that Philip had 4 daughters who were prophetess. God equips and he uses women who are faithful, who are humble, willing and ready to be used by him. Jesus' interactions with women shows us the value and importance of women in God's kingdom. He empowered them to use their gifts and their talents, all while breaking down barriers and challenging the culture. The women of the New Testament are incredible role models for us today, especially to any who may be afraid to step out and do what God is calling you to do. We tend to disqualify ourselves because of our own insecurities. I know I'm guilty. I've done it so many times. We let self-doubt get in the way. But you know what? God is looking for the willing, the ones that are willing to serve and to be used for His glory. The New Testament women inspire me to trust God. It may not always be easy, and there may be times you're wondering, am I doing the right thing? But just as Jesus cared about the women of the New Testament, He still cares about us today. He will equip us if we will humble ourselves, obey, and accept the call. Thank you for listening, and God bless.